What's up, everybody? It's Carmelo Anthony.
It's Richard Sherman, and you're watching JRSportBrief.
So look, folks, it's JR. You're checking out the Sport Brief. We have a special guest here today. It's my main man, Michael Rapaport. Say what's up to everybody out there.
How you doing, everybody? Glad to be here.
Likewise, man. And people remember, I remember you, Higher Learning, Boston Public, and you've done a lot more recent things. But right now, this is sports, baby.
Yes.
New York Knicks fans, suffering like me. Is that okay to say?
Suffering. We've abusive relationship. Being a Knicks fan is like being in an abusive relationship these last few years.
We're going to stay away from that. We've heard a lot about that on the news. We're going to stay away from the abusive part. But listen,
yes.
See, sometimes you just need a little bit of a refresher.
Yes.
You know, a few days ago, first of all, you're director of a new film, When the Garden Was Eaten, about the last Knicks championships teams. There was only 2 of them in the early 70s. But before we get started, Carmelo Anthony. I spoke about him a few days ago. People are confused about whether he's underrated, overrated. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, underrated, overrated. He ain't overrated because he's certainly not underrated. I think that the expectations, because he's so talented and he has so much ability, are high. And people are, playing in New York, the microscope is huge. And the stage is huge, and coming here, and then is he going to leave? Is he not going to leave? And then the Phil Jackson of it all. We're going to see what he's going to bring. I think he's a great talent. I mean, he plays his butt off. He plays hard every night, despite sometimes people are frustrated with the lack of ball movement or not, whatever. But being a Knicks fan, I think the most important thing to do is at this point, let's move forward. We have a completely new regime. And I think that Carmelo will be the first one to buy into it. I think it's going to be a little learning curve for all of them, including Derek Fisher. We're all going to go through a little learning curve the first 20, 30 games. But to answer the question, I don't think Carmelo's overrated. I don't know. I think he's rated where he should be. But I think that, until there's significant wins, his career won't be defined.
I'm with you. I just look at everybody that he's played with over his career. Probably the best player was a 33-year-old Allen Iverson in like 4 or 5 years ago. That's the way I look at it.
I agree. I mean, and the thing about Carmelo, the one thing that you can't say, he does play hard every single night. And I think last year he played the most minutes in the NBA. And if you notice, Carmelo plays with like rib pads. He's in there banging with big dudes. So Carmelo, I love Carmelo. I'm glad he stayed. I think it was the right decision, not just for Knicks fans, but I just think this whole idea of, leaving when the chips are down and I want to go here and win. Listen, you're in the right place. But you don't have to. Obviously, we won a championship, but I was thinking about some of the most revered Knicks, and one of the most revered Knicks is John Starks. And I think the reason why he's so revered is because win, lose, shoot us into games, shoot us out of games, headbutt us out of games.
Reggie Miller.
He played with so much heart, and that's why New Yorkers responded to him so much. And to this day, he'll always have a place in the Knicks organization. So I think that whether it's Carmelo or the role players, it doesn't matter. These current Knicks, as long as they play hard and play with emotion, the fans will appreciate them and love them. We want to see results, but I think if they just leave it on the floor every night, literally, and show that, I think that it'll change the sort of the relationship with this team.
Well, that's the current team. Right now, we're going to talk about the older teams, the teams that actually went out there and won. And this ties right into the current movie, ESPN 30 for 30, October 21st, ESPN, When the Garden Was Eaten, Knicks championship teams. Why? Why was it something that you went ahead and did?
Well, I grew up here in New York loving basketball. I always had heard and seen a little bit of those guys. My first favorite player was Walt Frazier and then Earl the Pearl Monroe. But I probably saw posters of them more than I actually saw them play. It was the 70s. So it wasn't like you could sort of learn and grow up with them the way you can with the internet. But growing up as a Knicks fan and hearing about those teams and hearing about those moments and hearing about how special they were, it was a great time to sort of go back in time and research who they were, why it was so special, and how it impacted the NBA. Because aside from winning, which is the obvious thing, and the stuff that a lot of people know about, we know about the Clyde and we know about the image of Clyde. But before that, there was that. And, back then, like Joe Namath and Walt Clyde Frazier were the biggest stars. And that image that Walt created for himself, it was sort of self-manufactured. It's brilliant. Now everybody comes into the league with a nickname. Everybody comes into the league with a story. everybody comes in with this pizzazz, and I mean, this was the first person to do this. Clyde, he set the whole and the whole dressing and all that stuff. Like that team was just doing that. It was just a genuine thing. Now everybody dresses and all that stuff.
He had the Bonnie and Clyde hat.
He had the Bonnie and Clyde hat.
Where it came from.
I mean, he had the fur. He had the fur coats. He had the ceilings he had the mirrored ceilings in his bedroom. So I mean, Clyde was humongous. But the way they won. And the fact that it happened in New York in front of the Madison Avenue Madmen changed the NBA, because before that the NBA was essentially a mom and pop league, and it was dominated by the Boston Celtics, which was great, but for only people in Boston.
Yeah, Bill Russell was up there killing it.
He was killing them, but when the Knicks won here in New York, celebrities started showing up at the games. It was really the precursor to what it is now, and the league became this hot thing, because before the Knicks started winning, it was a gambling infested all men's club with guys smoking cigarettes. No women would come to the games. But when that team became good, it changed the culture of the entire NBA, and it was like a lightning bolt into making the NBA into an entertainment league, which was what it became. Like when Magic and Bird essentially came back.
And you sat down with a whole. You sat down, it seemed like, with every great Knick in that era. Was there anything that you learned or picked up from them that you just said, "Wow"?
I mean, their personal stories. Dick Barnett and. Just his life. A lot of this stuff didn't even make the film, but I mean, just his life as a basketball player, and just like the struggle that there was so much racial craziness in the country, and there was so much, the racial climate was so different from what it is now. So that was something, hearing it firsthand from them through the eyes of a basketball player was very interesting.
And there was a Cassie Russell story in there. Well,
I mean, all of them. Everybody's story was just interesting. Their personal story and their personal journey on. Because I grew up, I literally wanted to be an NBA player. Like that was my dream. So walking through the how did you get to become an NBA player. Right. Was a very fascinating thing for me. And again, some of that stuff didn't make the film. Also, just the reality of playing in the NBA at that time, these were not rich people. Right. They weren't, they had two jobs, and while they were playing in the NBA, they would have another job. So that was like crazy to me, to sit down with, John Havlicek is telling me, yeah, I had a job in the offseason. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, when you were John Havlicek? He's like, yeah, when I was John Havlicek. And the fact that guys, the military was such a, because the country was at wartime, guys were in the National Guard and serving in the military while they were playing for the Knicks. Cassie Russell was in the National Guard while he was a Knick.
He was sharpshooting at some point in time.
While he was a Knick. And during the Chicago riots, he was called in. So, I mean, just that reality of it, and the looming factor of, I might get drafted. I mean, get drafted. Like, what are you talking about? I'm a basketball player. But that's what it was to be a professional basketball player at the time.
So you had a chance to screen this with the current Knicks team. And you sat up there with them. What was their reaction to seeing this? It's been about 40 years since the Knicks actually won anything. What was their reaction kind of taking it in?
To screen the film for the current Knicks at West Point and to be invited by Phil Jackson was one of the most surreal moments of my professional life, and it was just a true honor, because like I said, I wanted to be a basketball player growing up, and then to show my movie to this current Knicks about the old Knicks, which they essentially aspire to be. It was a trip. It was crazy, and their response was fantastic. They were so into the movie. They were laughing. They were oohing and eyeing. They were talking to me afterwards about it, and it was just a real sincere pleasure to do. And I think it was the idea was brought in by Phil, and I think it was to kind of show them, to remind them of what it means and what it would mean to win in New York City, because this is a basketball city, and I don't just mean that by who's important. Is it the Knicks, at the Yankees? The fabric and the makeup of New York. You can walk 30 blocks in any direction. There's basketball courts, whether people might be roller skating on it or kids might be playing dodgeball on it, or old men might be shooting around. There's basketball courts all over the 5 boroughs, wherever you go. And I don't think any other city in the world is made up like that. So the basketball is a city game. You know, the Knicks haven't won, and we're dying to have a team win. And I said that to that team, and they understand that. They get that, and they know that. And I think that it's just a matter of just, you know, we just got to click, and we just have to. It has to be about team. It really has to be about team, because if anybody proved that the last few years, the San Antonio Spurs dismantled the Miami Heat last year. Completely dismantled them. And I expect them to do the same to the Cleveland Cavaliers this year.
Michael said it.
That's my prediction, is that the Spurs are going to win the championship again this year. But it's a team game, and the only way it's going to work is if we come together as a team. And this whole idea of going to get championships, you're only going to get championships if everybody's on the same page. And it doesn't matter what team it is, but we're talking about the New York Knicks now.
Right. I can dig it. I really enjoyed the film. I think besides hearing from dudes you don't generally hear from,
right,
like Cassie, like Jerry Lucas,
right,
I enjoyed actually listening to Jerry West say, "Hey, I got my behind handed to me."
Right.
That was pretty cool as well. And while watching it, I actually said this would be pretty cool if this was done for all of the NBA legacy franchises.
Yeah.
That's how much I enjoyed the film. I encourage everybody to check it out. ESPN, October 21st.
Yep.
Give them more information.
It's October 21st. It's the classic, fantastic 30 for 30 series. I'm honored and privileged to be a part of it. I can't even believe that I made a movie that for 30 for 30s. I'm such a fan since they started coming on, and I'm looking forward to people seeing When the Garden Was Eaten. It'll be on October 21st, and they rerun them all the time, so it'll be easy to find. I'm excited about the NBA season.
Likewise, where can people keep up with you?
People can keep up to me. I'm easy to find. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I actually started a podcast, which I'm having a good time doing, called the I Am Rapaport podcast, where I talk a lot of junk. I'm pretty easy to find all over. Easy. You could call out the window, "Yo, Mike." I'll be like, "Yo, I'm easy."
Are you still trying to get into the NBA, or those days over?
I'm not trying to get into the NBA, but I still actually truly have real dreams. For real dreams, like I wake up and I have dreams that I'm playing professional basketball, which is pretty sad but true. That's my reality.
The real white mamba?
Better. I'm like, I'm better. I'm better in my dreams.
We're going to leave on that note. Make sure you check out When the Garden Was Eaten, 30 for 30, October 21st. Mike, just say peace to everybody.
Peace to everybody.
Now, Mike, this is an important part of the video here. Yeah. This is where we tell them October 21st,
okay,
but then we also tell them to subscribe.
Okay.
So you do it, and I'll stand here for a second. If you tell them to click a button.
Subscribe.
Yeah, just tell them to click a button. They know what to do.
Click a button. Subscribe. You know what to do. Subscribe. October 21st, When the Garden Was Eaten, 30 for 30 series. Looking forward to people checking it out, and I'm glad to be talking to you. But you got to subscribe. Click a button. He says you know what button it is.
Yeah.
Do they know what button it is?
They know what button it is.
All right, so as long as
I threaten them to click the button. And listen, his movie, the film, is not just for Knicks fans. If you like basketball, you need to watch it. It's October 21st.